All right, we are live, Celtics live post game. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you do subscribe to the channel, like this stream, yada, yada, yada. Ugh. In a game in which the Celtics looked like they were cruising, probably for the first, what would we call it? Maybe the first 20 minutes of that game, looked like they were cruising, ready to go. Here we go. We're plugging right along, just, clockwork. Let's take care of this team. We're going to take care of the next team. The big three are back. Then comes whatever the time frame was late in the second quarter where the Celtics just went and we just blew it. Literally blew it. Like, I know a lot happened after that point. The Celtics battled their way back and, had turnovers late in the game, so on and so forth. But if someone tries to tell me that, drought, if we call it that lack of basketball in the, late second quarter, really, really late second quarter, right before the half, if someone wants to tell me that had nothing to do with the loss, then shame on you, because it sure as hell did. So it's just a tough loss. Like, those are the ones that, and I feel like so many of these losses this year are games, aside from maybe the Nets and the Knicks, it's like so many of these losses are sort of like, oh, the Celtics should have won that game. And I'm not saying could have. You know what I mean? I'm not saying they could have won that game. I'm literally saying should have won that game, and then they just don't. So, we're going to get into all that tonight. But if you hadn't seen and hadn't heard, the Celtics lost to the Spurs 110-106. It was the return of Kemba Walker, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown all playing together. And I don't think it's what we wanted to see. I think we expected a lot more. But even, and we're going to get into it, even outside of those three guys, we're going to have a hard-pressed time trying to find anyone that really did anything tonight. So let's get into the box score before we get into some of the chat here. We will get to chat in just a second. But, let's get to some of the box score. Because like I said, you might think a few guys kind of stepped up to the plate. Brown right behind him, 24. Those two did their job. I expect them to do their job. They both shot decent from the field. Jason Tatum, 25 shots, shot 44%, and didn't make a three. Jaylen Brown, 50% from three on the other hand. So 25 and 7 from Tatum, where Jaylen had 24, 5, and 4. That's great. But then sort of the drop-off makes me feel like Kemba Walker wasn't there. And I know he's still early on and coming back and everything like that, but 14 points from Kemba Walker, a minus 16 in the plus-minus, and then, probably most notably was that ridiculously bad pickpocket he committed, I guess, late in the game there. That was sort of like, I don't think I've felt that with Kemba Walker before, where it's late in the game, he's dribbling, you get man-on-man coverage here, it's not like he's getting double-teamed or anything, and all of a sudden he gets stripped. I feel like I'm always comfortable with Kemba having the ball, even just coming back from an injury, everything like that. I feel like he is a guy that you can trust with the ball, and for that to happen, I literally, my stomach just sank. I know they came down into the three-point play and maybe gave us a glimmer of hope, but the game ended at that strip. When Kemba Walker had his cookies taken, the game ended right then and there. And I don't know if it was Jason Tatum, you could tell, but Tatum was just slouched, because he could tell too. But, so Tatum 25, Brown 24, Marcus Smart with 14. Marcus Smart, a couple times, I feel like every single post game we jump on here and we're doing the review of how did Marcus Smart have any instances of doing too much. There were a couple of Marcus Smart too much plays, but I don't think that he was the issue tonight necessarily. I think, there's a lot of contributing factors, like I already mentioned to start the show, that ending the second quarter, ending the first half. But Kemba Walker really wasn't there to me. 14 points, 2 of 7 from 3, and like I said, that costly turnover. And then look at the box score. Look at that box score. I mean, Tristan Thompson had 8 and 8. I think I'll take that. 3 offensive rebounds, but there wasn't much going on outside of that. It's like you look at this box score and you kind of say, where the hell does 100-plus points come from? Because it just doesn't jump out at you. But on the Spurs side of thing, DeMar DeRozan came on late with 21. Johnson had 18. Aldridge had 20. Lonnie Walker seemed like he had a stretch there where he was just going off. He finished with 14. But, I mean, I see it in the chat already. That's the type of loss that pisses you off and gets you angry because, again, that wasn't they could have won that game. That, in my opinion, was a Celtics should have won that game 1,000,000%. So let's get to some of the chat here. AC says, I'm just pissed. That's the message. Nothing else said. That was a bad loss to a team they should have beat. Perfectly put. I feel like I kind of just read that as a transcript when I was saying my when I was saying my piece there. But it is true. Like, that's a should have won game. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I think, a lot happened. And I kind of want to get into Brad Stevens here a little bit, but we'll say that. Let's get to some more of the chat. Maybe it'll come up. Gear with the crying Michael Jordan emoji. AC says, that's as mad as I've been for a Celtics result. They definitely should have won that. AC says, they don't play till Saturday. Why not Kemba? Why not let Kemba, Jalen, and Jason play the fourth quarter all the way? I don't know. I understand Kemba because I think he's still, technically on that restriction, I guess, and they want to ease him back in, sure. But there was a point in there when I was like, what the heck? Why aren't Jason and Jalen in the fourth quarter? But again, I don't know how much we want to read into like the late game. Like, yes, a lot happened in the late game, but if the Celtics just kept going, we wouldn't even, like in the second quarter there, if the Celtics just kept going, we wouldn't even have a late game to worry about. So that's where I'm kind of like tripped up in what are we making of this game? It's like my mind hasn't been fully made up, whereas, usually there's a clear-cut reason why we lost. But tonight it was like, at the end of the first half, they just stunk out loud. And then at the end of the game, they had a couple choke job plays. And I don't know which one was more costly because it's like, again, that second quarter, end of second quarter, end of the first half, when they just absolutely, ripped one in their pants. If they didn't do that, they might not even been in these late game situations. Kemba Walker may not have had an opportunity to get stripped because they were up by 12. I don't know. Anthony says, Celtics fans have unlimited excuses for Marcus Smart. I just don't know how you say, okay, Marcus Smart, you do this better, and then that game gets altered. Maybe you guys disagree with that, but I don't think that this is a Marcus Smart choke job. You know what I mean? And I don't even want to hear he took the last shot and missed the three. That was a fine shot in the corner. Jay Caesar says, that loss is on Kemba, and you can only have 2 assists while being a minus 16 on defense with no rebounds. It wasn't the best Kemba game. And, I thought we were going to see sort of like everyone's rearing and ready to go because of the big threes back, right? And we didn't see it. Like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown did their part. Jaylen Brown was a minus in the plus-minus, but only a -1. He did his part. Kemba Walker, your veteran star, led the way in the wrong direction for plus-minus. He had a -16. Ahan says, that's why I never bet on the Celtics when they get players back or are in San Antonio. Yeah, so I think I looked at this morning when I was looking into it. The Celtics in their last 18 games against the Spurs are 2-16. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I read that. I'm pretty sure I saw that when I was doing my research on all the NBA games around tonight. Jay Caesar says that third was embarrassing. Yeah, so it was sort of that stretch of that, obviously the end of the first half, right? And then not being able to come out and rewrite it right away. Like, they just absolutely crapped themselves going into the half. It was tough. They couldn't even inbound the ball, literally. Like, people use that as a term in basketball to rip on a team. Oh, they can't even inbound the ball. The Celtics literally couldn't inbound the ball. Actually. And then it's like, okay, well, fine. You blew it there. But how about the minute you come out of halftime, you get going. So I know we're going to get to the chat, but I got to talk Brad Stevens now because now I'm fired up. Brad Stevens, in the midst of that horrific stretch, whether you call it the end of the half or even the beginning of the third quarter, the fact that I still just don't see it out of him. There's no intensity. There's no nothing. The fact that a coach isn't getting his players hyped up at halftime saying, you guys just ended that half by getting a bunch of brown stuff all over your feet. Are you going to clean that up or are you going to walk around with it on your shoes? It just seems like nothing changes at halftime, and it's dated back a couple years now in the streams where we say, why is it that sometimes the Celtics team starts slow and then comes out of the half slow? And then it's been brought up by you guys multiple times. It's like, that's kind of weird that those are probably the 2 most times that they would be getting some sort of a pep talk, strong air quotes here, from their coach. Now, I'll entertain the idea of, well, we have stars and superstars on our team. How much is a coach going to do? That's true, but when you have such a young team, I feel like, if they're going to get distracted, if they're going to stop trying, the effort's not going to be there. There's got to be some sort of intensity and fire coming from the coach, and I think that it definitely harms them when there isn't from Brad Stevens. And, call me crazy, but I think the writing's on the wall that there isn't intensity there because it's like he doesn't even care enough to call a timeout in the middle of another team's run. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm not calling for Brad Stevens' head. I'm calling for Brad Stevens' intensity. That's what I want. I don't want a new coach. I want the coach we have and all the good stuff that he brings, but maybe a little bit of fire in his ass. I don't know. Call me crazy. Catrone says, who the Celtics getting at the trade deadline? I mean, one thing we talked about on the Tommy Points podcast yesterday was JJ Redick. That I feel like that'd be that doesn't fix any of their problems, I guess, tonight. Maybe it helps their scoring drought, but I think that he would open up the floor, and I think it's a really, really realistic guy that they can go and get. Obviously, not one of the big names. If we're talking trade player exception, we can talk about that because I'm sure that's going to be brought up in the show too. But, a realistic target, I don't see why, now that the Pelicans have said JJ Redick's available, he's having one of the worst years of his career. I feel like he's very gettable. I think that he's just got such a Celtics jersey on under all of these jerseys he's worn in his career. I don't know. Jay says, and way too much ISO in the fourth. Yeah, they didn't play team basketball. That fourth quarter. Now it worked out for a little stretch there, but it was kind of like Jason, you go score. Jalen, you go score. Kemba, you throw in that late three that he hit that was big. It really, really wasn't the best of team basketball. Anthony says Kemba played bad too. He definitely did. That's not what we need from Kemba. Jay says he has to pass the ball better. I agree with that. Anthony says we need to trade for Beal. I would love Bradley Beal here. It obviously depends on the price. It obviously depends on the price. That's such a on the fence response for me. That's a vanilla response for me, but it does. If they have to give up Jaylen Brown to get Bradley Beal, then I'm out. But who knows what the price is. Gear brings up a good point, too, and this is also a knock on the coaching to me, and I'm not trying to rag on Brad Stevens. There was just that stretch of the game really fired me up about him. He says after the first quarter, they'd already played 12 guys. They literally played their entire roster after the first quarter. What team that has a rotation down pat that has, the sixth man, the seventh man, the eighth man, the guys they know are going to play, the guys that they know the rotation, the guys that they can trust on and play their role every single game? What team that has that says, oh my God, we're going to play everybody in the arena except for the little guy that squeaks the sweat off the floor? We're going to play every single person in the first quarter besides him. It's just not, to me, it's not a confident look. You're trying to throw the kitchen sink at this team in the first quarter. Jay Caesar says, I knew DeMar was going to kill us, and he is the mid-range daddy. He is sort of I don't know if I said it on the stream or on the podcast, but when everyone's talking about Jaylen Brown and his mid-range game, I think I said he reminds me of when DeMar DeRozan all of a sudden just became a mid-range assassin. Because what people I feel kind of forget about DeMar DeRozan, right, is that he was a dunker. And all of a sudden, he started, not even slowly but surely, he just surely added this mid-range pull-up into his game, and we saw it beat us over and over again tonight, but then that dagger at the end over Thompson. Colin says, why was Kemba dribbling around? Get the ball to the Jays. Yeah, I don't know. It was a bad look at the end there. Jay says, this team will be fine, but I'm hearing Andre Drummond will get bought out and go to the Brooklyn Nets. If he goes to the Nets, that's just another guy. That now all of a sudden they have two beasts down there, along with three superstars. I don't know. It's a year in and year out thing, whereas we see these teams that are our competition or are true, at the top of the East competitors that make little moves, and the Celtics just don't do anything. So that's why I said at the start of the show, maybe getting a realistic target like JJ Redick that would open the floor. He doesn't help the defensive thing, but I don't know if that's their struggle. Doesn't help that, but he can open the floor for the Jays. He can score in the second unit. You name it, he can probably do it. But it's that's a realistic target, whereas I feel like that's the type of move the Bucks make or the Nets make or the Heat or the Sixers that we've seen in the past. And the Celtics just kind of say, no, we'll ride with Javonte Green. Yeah, we'll ride with Semi Ojeleye. We'll ride with Grant Williams. Yeah, we'll play these guys. We'll ride with Jeff Teague. That guy we have, Jeff Teague, who put up more zeros on a stat sheet than I've ever seen in my entire life. We'll ride with him. Jeez. Jay says we need to do something with ourselves. I feel like I just responded to that. Steven says terrible rotation. That's on Brad. At this point, Kemba's defense concerns me, especially if he isn't scoring 25 plus. I understand injuries, but I feel like we hold the Jays to a higher standard. Okay, now I know I've probably been negative on Kemba, and you guys definitely have too. I'll say one thing. Kemba Walker looked pretty bad in his return and first action with Jaylen Brown, right? And then all of a sudden he's popping off with Jaylen Brown the next game. There could be an element of he's still feeling out how the Jays are going to play with each other and then also with him. So if there's one disclaimer here, it is that. We can't. Anyone that jumped down Kemba's neck after the Knicks game, now you're eating crow, after those Sixers games, the Cav game, and the Bulls game. You know what I mean? Kemba Walker is good. I think we have to give it a little bit more time before we even say, you can't play with them. And, Steven, I'm not saying you're saying that, but it just, it's one game in a sense, even though we've seen it a couple times. It's one game where they all been back. Jordan says, everyone struggled shooting, but 25 points on 25 shots is bad for our star. It's not great. I just don't think that that's the loss in that stat line. All right, so I think, shooting 44%, 0 from 3 is probably more worrisome for me. But the 25 shots on 25 points, it's like, obviously you'd want to be a little bit more efficient than that, right? But is that where we lost the game? Is it because Tatum, made 44% of his shots, even though he shot 25 and only made 25 points? I can't get myself there. Jay says, Celtics truly need another guy that can just give them 12 to 15 points per game from the bench. Yeah. Colin says, get PP back. There's a guy that we probably would need in some of these games. Anthony says, Brad Stevens needs to step up and be more assertive and aggressive. I think entirely. That's just what he needs to do. Steven responding to, who was that? Jordan saying, Tatum struggled, but you can't expect him to be amazing every game, especially when the other stars underperform. Brown wasn't great and Kemba was ass. Yeah, I don't think I think Tatum, if he's more efficient, drops a few more points, I think that this team does better. But to me, Tatum maybe did his job tonight, Jason Tatum had an average game. And the fact that 11 of 25 with 25 points and 7 rebounds is like an average game for Tatum, I mean, that's a feather in our cap. But I do think that the loss is more or less resting on Kemba, a lot of the guys on the other team, which, again, the fact that our bench is this bad and they hold this much responsibility, that's not necessarily their fault, but it is an issue with some of these games. Do you know what I mean? So Kemba, the bench, Brad Stevens, I feel like that's where more of the weight's falling. And back to that bench point. If you think about it, and I think what I just said is pretty smart and intelligent, so stay tuned here. The fact that Javonte Green, Semi Ojeleye, Grant Williams, Jeff Teague at this point, the fact that these guys are forced to play and go out there and underwhelm, yeah, we can shit on them and we can knock them for being bad or sucking, you know what I mean? But at the same time, the fact that the Celtics have to and are forced to roll them out and rely on them and hold them as accountable as they are, that's more or less on the team building, not necessarily the players' fault. Like Jeff Teague at this point, he goes out and stinks. That's what he does. Whatever. He is what he is. But the fact that we have to play Jeff Teague, now obviously Pritchard being hurt is a little bit different here, but the fact that we have to play Jeff Teague, that's not Jeff Teague's fault. Gear says we should get KG to yell at the guys during halftime. Give me that all day long. Jay Caesar says, Brad has been like this for 8 years. Don't expect fire. I know, but Brad's also probably never had a team this good. I feel like Brad Stevens is intelligent enough to and adapt his coaching enough to say, okay, this team, the way that I coach, I think I've gotten them as far as I can. Let me try something else rather than just sitting there and I do it on the stream all the time. This is Brad. Maybe he'll walk around with his mask on and go like this. So I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like he's good enough of a coach to say, okay, maybe I do, because we've seen him do it before. It's not like this guy's a mute. We've seen him rip into refs and rip into players before. It's just not very often, if like once a year, Steven says, imagine JJ and Kemba playing defense together. Oh my Lord. Right. Like I said, JJ Redick doesn't solve any sort of defensive problems, but I think he aids in a way more offensive role than anyone you have coming off the bench right now. Wong, he says IT. Yeah, if we can get IT, it looks like he's going to try and prove to everyone. So shout out to Isaiah for joining Team USA there. It looks like he's going to try and prove to everyone that he could still ball. I believe in him. That's probably just the bias in me, but I believe in Isaiah. We'll see. Han says underrated opinion, and this, I'm in on this. I am in on this. And I think you might have brought this up, or someone brought it up before. He says, underrated opinion, Celtics should snag McGee, better rim protecting, and Brooklyn will go after him so you can cock block. I think, did you say that once in the stream before? Because, the player himself, if he doesn't do the JaVale McGee, like I'm trying to be a human highlight reel, because he does that so much. If he tries to fit in, the JaVale McGee, I'm in on, because all of a sudden you do have that big man. Now, do I think that, that's the move that puts him in contention? I don't know about that. You know what I mean? I don't think you go and get JaVale McGee and all of a sudden all your problems are answered. Your bench becomes a million times better, and then all of a sudden you're a championship contender. But one sneaky point here is that all of a sudden you don't let any other team in the East have a guy like that, who we've seen JaVale McGee be able to play his role on teams and kind of be absolute, just kind of electric off the bench. Gear says having 12 guys played after the first makes me think some guys just didn't know their roles in the team. That's what I said last year too, right? I said over and over again last year that, and I could be wrong, I'm not an NBA coach, but if I'm on the bench, I want to know kind of when I should be getting ready, or okay. Everyone be ready. I get it. They're NBA players. Get ready to play. But don't act like, it's not the case of like if someone's on the bench and they just have no clue they're going in and Brad's like, hey, Javante or Carson, get in there. It's like they're like, oh crap, I'm going in. Like I knew I was probably gonna play tonight, but right now, coach, right now, you know what I mean? I feel like there's some sort of something missing there. They don't have defined roles, which in many ways you can make the argument, oh, that's good. It's all based on matchups. But a lot of these teams that we see are at the top of the top in this league just have straight up like, oh, that's our sixth man, that's our seventh man, that's our eighth man. And then you get into that guy might play some night and that guy might play some night. But you don't just have a random, Neesmith sighting in the beginning of the game and then nothing for the rest of the game. Like this isn't Brad Stevens. The first quarter is not summer league. The first quarter and second quarter are not summer league. You don't get to just test the waters and see how a guy does and then play him for the rest of the game as if it was the regular season or not play him for the rest of the game. Like these type of things have to be ironed out, I feel like, before the game. You don't just, and again, there's some sort of a margin of error, if we call it that, in what I'm saying, right? Like obviously if you put a guy in and he's on fire, you leave him in. That's sort of the test phase, but you don't throw the kitchen sink at a team and say, hey, let me see what's going to stick against the wall, and anything that falls here is not playing again. Like Carson Edwards getting 3 minutes early in the game and then not even smelling the floor for the rest is kind of confusing to me. And now I'm Carson Edwards going into the locker room being like, bro, what? Jay says Brad's never had a set rotation. I know, and I don't know if that's a good thing, but I also don't know if it's because of the team that's been formed. So I know that sounds like I'm ragging on Brad Stevens, but it's more or less a rag on the coach plus the meal that he's been served. I'm skipping ahead in the comments just a little bit. We got a lot to catch up on here. Thomas says, should have went to the zone way earlier. That seemed to work, yeah. But again, if that didn't work, then all of a sudden you look desperate again. It's like you're still just throwing the kitchen sink at this team. I feel like the Celtics just, I don't know what they could have done different. I think that they just blew it, and they towards the end of the game, they just sucked to you-know-what, and it just stunk. It stunk to watch. I'm sure it stunk to play in. But to your point, if that zone were to work exactly like we saw it work, you go to that earlier, and then all of a sudden, that's different than throwing the kitchen sink at them. I'm saying if it were to flop, all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, we tried this. We tried Carson. We tried Neesmith. We tried the zone. Nothing works. Then all of a sudden you're just in a downward spiral. But we saw it work. So to your point, I feel like that's a fair comment. Sports Shy says, how does Danny look at this bench and think we can really compete? I don't understand how. And you can't say, oh, he doesn't look at his bench. He doesn't look at his bench and think they compete. He's just being patient. You don't have to say, okay, we're not patient. We're going to go get JJ Redick. Like, that's not just giving up your patience. You're not going to have to give up crap in terms of mortgaging your future to go get JJ Redick or PJ Tucker or JaVale McGee's been talked about. That's nothing like, oh, I got to be patient here. I got to be patient. I don't want to trade my assets. You're giving up no assets to get JJ Redick, no assets to get PJ Tucker, unless you're some hardo that just truly believes in those second round picks, or some of the garbage guys on this team. JC just says Aaron Gordon would put us over the top. I think he would, but I think at the same time he would be like put us over the top of maybe after a year or two. Like I don't think that he's the put us over the top. I'm thinking Beal without having to give up, any of the core, or Karl Anthony Towns, same stipulations apply. Like when I say and I don't think that those are probably even realistic as much as I want to see Bradley Beal out of Washington no matter where he goes. But put us over the top, I almost think because of where this team is in the schematic of the league right now, I feel like put us over the top means like clear-cut best in the East and probably winning the championship. That's what my put us over the top is. But in terms of just throwing them into contention, being able to possibly, take a team 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals or in the finals, I think Aaron Gordon does that now. But in terms of put us over the top, and again, that's just semantics. I'm not saying you're wrong. That's just semantics. But put us over the top. Yeah, I would put Aaron Gordon in that category if we were to get him. Steven says, like this trade exception should have been used yesterday. I hate the 76ers and the Bucks, but have some of the best benches in the league. Nets have too much firepower. We need to make a move to keep up. Yeah, I mean, that I I don't know if the trade exception and filling out the bench are necessarily one and the same. So hear me out. I do think, filling out the bench and then adding some veterans, adding some guys that actually do stuff off the bench obviously helps this team and could be the biggest void of this team. And if all of a sudden we can go to a bench that we can rely on, hell, we can even beat other teams' second units. I think that'd be huge. But the trade exception, I almost feel like, is to get that next piece, not just a couple bench guys, right? Now, I could be wrong, and I don't know what Danny Ainge is thinking, but you don't need to rush into using the TPE. You can wait, see what happens, see how Kemba's knee is, see everything. You can look at the landscape of your team and then say, okay, this is what we're going to use it on. But you don't even need to worry about that to go get some of these guys that would help the bench. So to your point, yeah, I mean, both of those things would be great for this team, but one of them can happen yesterday, whereas the other one doesn't need to. So go get JJ Redick, go get PJ Tucker. That can happen right now as we speak. Figuring out how to best use the TPE, that may take a little bit more time because you don't want to just use it to use it. I don't want people to forget that why we have that, because we lost a 17 and 8 50% guy from our team. That's why we have that. So we don't want to just splurge it and not get the best return on it. So I think being patient with that's okay. But leaving that aside, go build this team. They have the hard part done. They have the core, the stars. You can add a couple bench guys, and this team goes from here to here real quick. Didn't even mean to do that, but literally out of frame. Like, you can't see my hand right now. Gear says, we have too many guys like Javonte, Carson, T, Green, Semi, like random lineups and guys who don't add a ton to the team. Philly did a job fitting guys next to their star players. Philly, I feel like, signed guys for reasons, right? Signed guys for reasons, whereas some of the Celtics guys, and again, I use him as an example. I'm not going to use Javonte Green, but Semi Ojeleye, what is his reason? Because some people might now say, oh, well, he stretches the floor, or he can make the corner three, or he plays defense, or he's physical. It's like, well, how about the Celtics go and get one or two guys that you can tell me, like, you get JJ Redick, what's JJ Redick for? Hits the three, spaces the floor. Boom. That's the reason. That's a need you have. You filled that need. You don't get a guy that, he can do a little bit of that, he can do a little bit of this. I don't want a jack of all trades and a master of none. I want a master of one, and then, he's jack shit at a bunch of other trades. I don't want a bad basketball player for the most part, but you know what I mean? I want someone that is able to fill a void, not just be another body out there. Jay Caesar says, Tristan is 29, plays like he's 40, doesn't know what to do with the ball. Yeah, he's not the most... I'm trying to say this. I don't even know. He's not the best with the ball. I do think he's a guy that has been grinding for this team, though. Now, does he have to keep starting, or does he have to start... does he have to start, I guess we could say, or can we roll with Tice like we have in other lineups and whatnot? No, but I think that Thompson is of value to this team. I just think he could be doing more. I think that was brought up in one of the streams. Go do a little bit more for me. I'd like that, but is Thompson a bust for the signing and whatnot? No, Teague is down here, and Tristan Thompson, if this was the ceiling, Tristan Thompson's kind of okay, well, he's just kind of floating here. He has nights 8 and 8, 3 offensive boards. I'm probably okay with that for the most part, but that's assuming that there's other parts of this team that are firing on all cylinders. Nights like tonight, you would like a guy like Thompson to do a little bit more. Wong, he says, Brad does a lot of rotations during the regular season, barely in the playoffs. It's basically JT and JB are going to win us the championship or not, which is okay. No matter who they sign, no matter who they go and get, no matter the difference that this team looks after the deadline, it's still going to be Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown that win you that championship, with Kemba Walker sprinkled in. So why not go and trade and take flyers on guys? Why wouldn't you bring in a PJ Tucker? If the asking price is really 2 second-round picks, why wouldn't you get PJ Tucker and then say, okay, well, it didn't work out, then he's not going to play? It's not like you're trading everything. That's the trade player exception sort of dilemma that I just spoke about earlier. It's I don't want to go and splurge that trade player exception, bring in a guy or, 2 guys or whatever that just absolutely we overpaid for, and now they just don't work here. But some of these no-risk, high-reward type players, I don't know why you're not doing that yesterday. Let's see. Jay says, Keldon Johnson, I like that guy. Typical Spurs snag. Yeah. It literally, that you couldn't have put that better. It just is a typical Spurs snag. Gear says, Neesmith adds more to the team than Grant. So, I mean, you guys know where I stand with Grant Williams. I don't think that he was terrible tonight by any means. I think he actually came in and sort of gave the team some presence out there, but that's even the weird part, right? So this speaks to the rotation and even to him too. It's like, if Grant Williams is supposed to be able to come in and give us presence, why are we waiting till late in the third quarter, whenever it was, to play him? Because we have no clue what to get from him. It's still an issue. And, after seeing some of these Brad Stevens rotations, it's like, how can Brad Stevens expect Grant Williams to go out there and contribute if, Brad Stevens just barely played him the past couple games? It's like this whole team, no one really knows where they stand or anything like that other than Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And that's great, but I feel like we need a little bit more of a constant, and I don't think we have that right now. Mustafa says, what did I miss, guys? You missed a game that the Celtics should have won. You missed a lot of, I probably sound like the Celtics fan, spoiled brat out here. That's what you missed. Jay says, the bench is just brutal. That's the main issue. Yeah, we're going to have nights, okay, Kemba Walker had 14 points, minus 16 plus minus, right? Guess what, guys? Spoiler alert. We're going to have Jason Tatum off nights. We're going to have Jaylen Brown off nights too. So everyone better bring the same intensity about how they suck if that's the case. The issue is not Kemba Walker right now. It's his first game back with the big three. Would we like him to just come out here and dominate and, put up 20-plus points with the Jays? No kidding. But there's way bigger issues on this team than your, last year's all-star, Kemba Walker. Mama says we suck. The bench, I think we could be using that word. I think the bench sucks right now. I think it sucks. Eric Gordon is another guy who could help. I think that'd be a good guy, too. I think that's another good name. You notice all these names we're bringing up, for the most part, too, aside from I think we brought up Aaron Gordon, are guys that have seen it all. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. Freaking insurance company made a whole business out of that motto. Can't we just get one or two new guys on the bench that have that and live by that and can contribute that? Gear says we need more vets who know their role, like PJ Tucker, who's just physical and shoot. Yeah. Yep. Thomas says, this is a hot take, but I don't think we need another big. We don't need 4 bigs on this team. Tice is playing great, and Rob needs more minutes. So that's something that we've gone back and forth with on the show before, right? And I think I lean your way, Thomas. I think if you bring in another big, you're pretty much stunting Robert Williams' growth. But I don't think it would hurt to have another big. So I think I'm going to agree with you saying we don't need another big. I want a bench wing or a bench shooter, bench shooting guard, that type of thing, or maybe even a bench point guard now, because I don't want to be this Celtics fan, but what if Pritchard comes back and isn't what we thought he was? Maybe he plays a little bit timid. I don't want to think that way. What? You know what I mean? So maybe I would rather that sort of bench guy that we can rely on for offense. I'm not even saying for necessarily scoring. That would be nice to be able to score, but a guy that just can create offense, which I don't think we have now. So I'd rather that than a big. But if you're talking going to get Karl Anthony Towns, or I think Drummond's been brought up a lot, or Aaron Gordon, if we call him a big, I think that's way different. There are some names out there that you would say, okay, maybe we bring on and then we take the risk of stunting Robert Williams' growth. But if you're gonna go get a big like JaVale McGee, I guess thinking about it, that does do something, and it might sort of stunt the growth there. Jay says, I like Romeo, Rob, and Fast PP on our bench. Everyone else can go. Yeah, Romeo, he could come in and be the guy that I'm talking about. That'd be great. Kale says, which teams are looking for salary jump in form of a TPE? I don't know if there's a lot of options. Yeah, I haven't really looked into it as much either. But those are the type of teams that you can get a good deal for. Because, again, you don't want to overpay with this TPE and then get something that isn't going to work out. If you go and look for a team that's ready to do that type of thing, all of a sudden you're kind of like, okay, well, now we have the leverage. And we're not even giving up the player in the deal. Abdul Adam. I'm going to call you Abdul. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. He says, time to fire Brad. I don't know. I just want a little fire from Brad. Fire in Brad, not firing Brad. Let's make that clear. Anthony says, I know you're a Celtics fan, but did you end up watching any of the Sixers-Lakers games? I caught the end of it. I pulled it up. And saw Tobias Harris with the pull-up, too. That was, I think the Sixers, not to get off topic here, but they're a real team, right? I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter, went back and forth a couple times with the Sixers. He's like, oh, are you salty because the Sixers whooped you twice last week? And I said, no, as a matter of fact, my broom is still fresh from last year. So, it's all fun and games, but at the same time, the Sixers are pretty legit. They're real. They're real. Jay says, even getting a guy like Dario Saric would be underrated. Yeah, I mean, all these names, the funny thing is, you guys are going to be hard-pressed to bring up a name where I'm like, no, Semi Ojeleye is better than him, right? Like, there's so many guys out there that you would be like Dario Saric, I haven't thought of in who knows how long. And already I'm kind of like, yeah, I mean, I feel like he could be a good guy off the bench compared to what we have. That's an issue. The fact that you guys can pull a name out of left field, type it in here, let me read it and be like, yep, sign me up. That speaks to some of the issues that we have, does it not? Gear says, some guys just don't add anything to the team. Like, yeah, Grant has his good games, but he doesn't make us better. We need guys who will come in for a purpose other than being a big body. So I know that I'm, hard on Grant Williams. I will say, I do think that he does have his purpose more than some guys like Semi Ojeleye or Javonte. Hear me out for a second. Grant Williams, if he works out, he sort of is the Draymond Green where he can be your small ball big, even though he's like 3'11". All right. So like he has his purpose and what you want him to be. Like you don't want like Grant Williams. We know what he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be that guy, like he's supposed to be that small big man, the physical guy, plays little defense, gets little hustle rebounds, boxes out well. You're not confused as to what he is. A guy like Semi Ojeleye now, who, yeah, he's taking step ups in his game, but it's like, is he supposed to be a big man? He doesn't look like a big man. He's supposed to be a wing guy. Is he supposed to be a lockdown defender? Why is he shooting so many threes now then? Yada, yada, yada. It's like, and I don't know if that makes sense because I'm splitting hairs here between Semi Ojeleye and Grant Williams. Again, the fact that I'm even doing this speaks to the bench. But I do think, as hard as I am on Grant, I think if Grant Williams, the player he's supposed to be, works out, he does have a purpose. So that's the only word I'm focusing on there. Gear says Beal just had 47. Oh, man. Bradley Beal. Like, he's just in a system where I feel like he's lost. Like, he had 47 and they got whooped by 20 points. Yikes. Jay says we still have a big man issue. Rob is 6'8", Tice is 6'9", 6'8", and then TT is 6'9". Enough is enough. We need 6'11" up. It'd be good. It'd be great. But two parts. One, if you only get a big man, I don't know how much. I think there's still the hole in the team of everything else I've talked about. But also, I feel like this league is trending away from that now. In some ways, I feel like it's even trending towards it. So that goes back on what I just said. But some of the best teams in the league have that 7-footer. But I do think, I'm not saying we don't need a big man, or I did say we don't need. I don't think we need a big man, Jay. I'm going to disagree there. But the fact that we still have a big man issue, that's a word I'd probably teeter-tatter on, or teeter-totter, whatever I'm trying to say here. I don't think that, it's a necessity to have to get this team to where they want to be. I think a couple bench players that could be upgrades over the guys that are currently playing, all of a sudden you're talking. But yeah, they don't have the height, and I think that, they can definitely get worked on the boards from time to time, if not most times. Kale says, I'd love to see a young big man who's progressing added to this team. Let me see a hungry dude who wants to take over the league, like Mitchell Robinson, great at the rim, desperate for minutes. See, that's the type of thing. That kind of relates to what I just said. Like, I wouldn't mind at all getting a guy like that. And do I think he would make this team better? Yes. If we got a guy like Mitchell Robinson, I think all of a sudden you have a way better team. You're closer to contending, but I still think you're going to have times where the bench goes in and it's like, wait, who's supposed to dribble the ball? Who's supposed to shoot the ball? Who's supposed to pass the ball? What offense are we running? So I don't think that it's the biggest issue, but if you can get a guy like that, then yeah, and he's there enough where, I hate to say this about Time Lord, but if you got Mitchell Robinson, I feel like he's already like a little bit ahead of Time Lord in the sense of where he is in his game, and I think that, he could overtake those minutes, which I don't want to see, but I do like Robinson on the Knicks. Gear says, having to rely on guys like Grant and Semi is annoying. You never know how much they will play, and you don't know what they'll bring every night. Yeah, it's great. It's great when they do play well. But then when they don't, it's like, that makes sense. It's great to be rah-rah Grant Williams, rah-rah Semi Ojeleye. And then all of a sudden they don't play, and you're like, wow, that just makes a whole lot of sense that they either didn't play or that when they did play, they stunk. It just makes sense. Let's see. Kel says, I think Pritch has the mentality to keep him driving forward. I hope so when he comes back. Let's see. I disagree. Jay says, we might need to trade Tice. He is a free agent next year and could be expensive. I don't want him to walk for nothing. I mean, I'm down with that. I think we talked about it a couple shows ago, right? Daniel Tice is the guy that is overvalued right now. And meanwhile, I love me some Tice. I think he has, taken leaps and bounds in his game and has really done a lot for this team. But that's the exact type of guy that I compared him to a Jay Crowder or a Kelly Olynyk or a Jonas Jerebko. Not in like skill or play wise, but it's kind of like all of a sudden they're not Celtics, and you're kind of like, huh, oh yeah, you know what I mean? Like even Aaron Baines to an extent, who we'd probably still want back on this team, but even him, it's kind of like, he went somewhere, and you're like, okay. You know what I mean? Like they're so great to have, and you love being the fan favorite here. But then when they leave, it's kind of like, oh yeah, no, there's better options out there. Let's see. Gear says Beal just brings more ISO. I think Beal has a lot more in his game. He might be looking like that because he's on a crappy-ass Washington team, but Bradley Beal is a way more complete player than an ISO player. You also say Cat is the guy if we make a trade. That's just dreamland. Like, I wish we can get Cat. If he's available, I think you got to make the call. And it was brought up in the stream last night or 2 nights ago, right? When it was like, would you trade Smart in a package for Karl Anthony Towns? And I'm like, there's only 2 names I probably wouldn't give up for Karl Anthony Towns. Jay says, Tice is a good player, but I'm sure there'll be teams that might overpay for a service. And mind you, I mean, I think so too. I think Tice, I kind of just said it too. Like, he is so good for what he is, but you can definitely upgrade. So if that's the case, we're going to make, then sign me up for a big man, right? If we're going to get a big man, Tice is going to leave. It's going to be Thompson. That way you don't take away from Robert Williams, like I've been saying, right? Because I know Robert Williams, he's still young. Like, he still has flaws in his game, but I really am rooting for him, and I think he's going to be good. So if you don't have to sacrifice his minutes by bringing in a big man because you got rid of one of your other big men, then yeah, that's completely different, and I'm in. Dean says, pissed. I can see it in your face. I mean, I'd love to be like, I think the camera's making me red, guys. The camera's making me red. It's probably just my red face being mad. Let's see. Graham says, why didn't the Celtics get, or what if the Celtics get Rudy Gay? I feel like every single name that gets brought up, I'm kind of like, yeah. Because I think that is kind of a guy I'm talking, like Rudy Gay can score. He's a veteran. He's been around. He can slow the game down. He definitely wouldn't be pressing, like pressing offense or anything like that. He would be able to slow it down and maybe create some offense. So yeah. Like, there's so many names that I'm just like, yeah, sure. Dean says, too much focus on offense hurting their team defense. But I think you can beat this, like, give a margin of error of like 5 points tonight. 105 points, that's pretty good in the NBA nowadays. You know what I mean? 110 points is still pretty good. We look around the league, you see, 100 and 120, 140, like crazy numbers being put up. So I'm not going to say like the defense is where it needs to be. They've had sloppy defense, but I think that the defense may be there. I think that we do struggle in rhythm in offense sometimes. But I do think, sometimes the defense just gets dragged out and they just stop playing, which isn't defensive ability. It's just defensive, like mental toughness and just tuning out. So yeah, I think there's flaws on both sides of it. Jay says, I think we should be GMs. Let's tag team. We don't see eye to eye always, but that's how the best processes gets worked out, right? We vet each other out. We could be GMs. Graham says, Grant Williams is not as good as Draymond Green. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I said if he works out to be that, then all of a sudden he has the purpose, right? I was focusing on the word purpose because there's a lot of guys that don't have a purpose on this team. Grant Williams' purpose is to get to that Draymond Green level. Will he get there? I'm not too bullish on it. Dean says offensive development and Brown and Tatum has taken the focus away from their defense. I don't know. I think they've been pretty good defensively. And I think the Celtics are a team defense. Like they sort of cover for each other when someone's stepping back. But maybe you're right. But I think that those guys have gotten better and better defensively in the league. Maybe it's just that their offense have taken such an exponential growth where the defense seems like it's lacking now. But I still think that they're, above average defenders, definitely. Kale says, I feel like Danny Ainge is trying to be patient for the sake of making sure he gets a fit with longevity. It seems Danny is avoiding a one championship mega trade like we had with KG and Ray, which is totally fine because you don't want to. You mentioned longevity. You don't want to mortgage the longevity for a shooting star. And what if you don't see the shooting star? You didn't get to your window in time. But what if you just didn't have to mortgage the longevity, mortgage the future, nothing like that? You just had to sign some of these bench guys, and all of a sudden, forget even championships for a second. I know it's tough to say that as a Celtics fan, but forget that. You just do have a better team. And what your team will look like in 4 years, it might be completely different, but what did you lose in the meantime? Right? Nothing. So it's like, I get that, and that is where I fall and would agree with that comment with the trade player exception. Be patient with that. You don't have to use it this year. Use it next year, figure out how this team, where it's going, that type of thing. But in terms of packaging 2 second-round picks and getting P.J. Tucker, unless we're looking at a couple of the best drafts in history, those second-round picks are going to be, that's what they're going to be. Trade Marcus Smart and Kemba Walker for Bradley Beal. I'd probably do that too. Bradley Beal's that good to me. I love Kemba. I spent the better part of this show defending him. I love Bradley Beal. Tyson Smart coming off the bench in an ideal world. Yeah, see, that makes the bench, it just seems like the Celtics with injuries and whatnot never seem to have the ability to run their true bench. So I'm not saying you're saying this, Wongy, but I always hate the argument. They do have a good bench. They're supposed to have Smart and Tice or Smart and Thompson off the bench. It's like, yeah, well, then tell the Celtics team to stay healthy one time, and you can tell me that those guys are bench players. Because look at last year, right? Marcus Smart should have been a bench player, and yet he started like every single game. Same even with this year. You know, he could have been coming off the bench, and he started so many games. Gear says Neesmith can be a spark. I agree. Jan says Celtics have the big man. It's Taco Fall. What are you talking about? You sound like Brad Stevens. Oh, don't say I sound like Brad Stevens. Thomas says Celtics are officially in their first rough patch of the season. 3 wins and 7. Worst time as we have LA, Golden State Kings, LA Suns, and Utah. We start out worse than Kyrie 10-10 start years ago. Yeah, I mean, when you say it like that, it ain't that good. They've lost in the last chunk of games. They've lost more games than they've won. That sounds bad because if that sort of thing spirals out of control, then all of a sudden you're looking at an under 500 team. Mathematician over here. I hope it doesn't, but it definitely isn't a good look that you can pluck, you know, the last, week plus maybe of games. When do they play the Knicks? Was it just a week? No, whatever. You know what I'm saying. The week plus maybe 2 weeks of games, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, that's only 14 days, and in 7 games they lost 4. That's tough. Jay says Lakers will be a good test. Yeah, I feel like we're gonna see this team step up against good teams. So I hope that that's gonna be the case. Jay says trade for Mo Bamba and AG and call it a day. I mean, Mo Bamba doesn't even play, right? I feel like you can get any of those Magic guys right now. You can get any of those Magic guys. Let's see. Got to put some of the losses on COVID, Kemba's knee, and an ability to have a definite cohesion with the team. Yeah, I think that's probably, yeah, that puts to bed what I'm saying about you look at this team in a vacuum, and all of a sudden it's like they lost more games than they won. No Tatum for the majority of those. Kemba came back. Still no Tatum. Kemba came back and didn't have the play he needed. Now all of a sudden you have it's such a weird way to put it, but all of a sudden 3 wrenches got thrown into the system because all 3 of your stars are back now. So there could have been some growing pains. So it's a good point, but at the same time, if these are the type of things, this is how I'll counter that, Kale. If these are the type of things that we're now gonna use as excuses, we better put them to bed after this. You know what I mean? Because I have a feeling, based on recent history, the Celtics are going to continue to have somehow one of their stars, knock on wood, injured, or, COVID being what it is, the beast it is, might be having guys sit out. So I don't know if we can say, those losses were because we had lineup struggles. Who's to say those lineup struggles are just in the past? You know what I mean? We could definitely be seeing those come through still. At least I can laugh at the Heat, you say. Yeah. At least we can laugh at other teams, fine. But Philly, who I would consider more of the rival, just beat LA. Let's see. Graham says Tristan Thompson for Andre Drummond. I'd do that in a heartbeat. I don't know if the Cavs would do that. I think you'd have to throw in some more stuff, but I'd do that. Jay says, LOL, the Heat didn't want to include Hero in any Harden deals. Can we admit Tyler Hero is one of the most overrated players in recent NBA? And I'm not even saying he's bad, but everyone wanted to crown this guy the new king of the league after one playoff run. I know, I don't think when's the last time he played? And he's probably having a fine year. I'm not up on my Tyler Hero, but the fact that the Heat wouldn't trade Hero or include him in a deal for Harden, I feel like speaks to the overrated. I don't know. That could just me being a hater because he kind of had a couple daggers against us. I don't know. Thomas said, let's see, hold on. Kale says Drummond wants a buyout to go to the Nets. Yeah, I think we talked about it earlier. So if he goes to the Nets, then it's like that just made them even better. Like, I just don't want to see that. Thomas said, yeah, COVID messes it up as JT did not play at Philly. Celtics win at least one with him. Although the refs were ass in game one. Embiid more free throws than the Celtics combined. Yeah, I mean, the losses to Philly, the first one I wasn't mad about, which is when you're talking about. The second one, I was kind of like, dude, we still could have won that. Anthony says, Andre Drummond would help a lot for your team because he's a guaranteed double-double every game. Even if he's like, say he's a Thompson, right, who just doesn't seem to even score, he triples what Thompson's getting on the boards. You know what I mean? So it's like, I would take Drummond. I think the stream has, you guys, if you tune in every night, has sort of pretty much like forced me into liking the Drummond move. If you remember, like a week ago when Drummond was first brought up, I was like, I don't know. Now all of a sudden I'm like, okay, yeah, I think that he would help. Now my caveat there was that I don't want the Celtics to tunnel vision down on Andre Drummond and then lose out on any potential opportunity out there. I don't know what that is, but I use the example of, say, Bradley Beal could be a possibility, or Karl Anthony Towns, but the Celtics just wanted Andre Drummond so bad that they never even called those guys. That's where I don't want the focus on Andre Drummond to be. But if Andre Drummond's the deal that makes sense and they've vetted every other option, then I think I'm on board. I will never respect the Nets stack the deck team even when they win a chip. Yeah, I mean, you must not respect a lot of NBA championships lately, huh, Jay? Because I feel like the way to win in the NBA now is just stack the deck. The Warriors, you could even say stack the deck. I think, one little feather in their cap is that they went out and built through the draft. But then still, like, it's like the team that seems so loyal and real just went out and got Kevin Durant. And it's like, oh, well, I guess, they're that deck stacking team too. Kale, I love this name. He said, I much prefer if we could require Jared Allen, but I think the Cavs run him for his whole contract. I love Allen. Love him. Love him. Let's see. Ev, pick a starting 5 of players that left while Brad has been head coach. Pick a starting 5 of players that have left while Brad has been head coach. Okay, I don't know if I'm understanding this right, but Kyrie, Terry Rozier, Gordon, Hayward, obviously. You have, pick a star. Are you saying guys that are starters now? Wongi, you got it. Come on, I'm stupid. You got to spell this out for me. Pick a starting 5 of players that have left while Brad has been head coach. Do you want me just to pick like my starting 5 of guys that we no longer have? Because if so, skill-wise, Kyrie's there. Mentality and fan-wise, get him out of here. But I need clarification. Tito says it's always been stack the deck. That's the NBA. Yeah, Jay, I think you're crazy if you think that and you might be right that you don't like the championship, you won't respect it, but man, that's how you win in the NBA now. Tom says, what would the trade be for Cat? What would you give up? What would Minnesota take? I don't even know where to begin. Marcus Smart, the trade exception, maybe every single pick you own until, 3014, the year. I don't know. I would give up a lot for Karl Anthony Towns if it just didn't involve Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Kemba Walker, Marcus Smart. Karl Anthony Towns is one of the names in the NBA that I think I would give the house. What's the saying? I would trade the farm for. I would do that. Grant says Celtics Cheddar Celtics should try to. I know you said Cheddar, but I'm thinking you said should try to sign Jeff Teague before the season. Should have. Usually I can't read comments, but Graham did put the word Cheddar where it just doesn't belong. Celtics probably should have tried to sign Jeff Teague before the season. Jeff Green before the season started. Yeah, bring him back. I mean, he's better than a lot of the guys you have too. Okay, let me try and answer this question, and then we're going to get out of here, guys. A few more comments, we'll get out of here. So Wangi says, just the best team regardless of favoritism. So Kyrie, Terry Rozier, I've been a huge Terry Rozier guy, and I think he's kind of proven people that he is a good player. Gordon Hayward, what's that 3? You have your 1 through 3 there. Power forward, maybe a Al Horford. I feel like I'm going to be missing someone. Al Horford, and then I got to be missing a center. I got to be missing like a good center that they just lost. But I would guess Aaron Baines maybe. I don't know. What do we think of that starting 5? Tito says Lakers in the 80s had like 8 Hall of Fame players on one team. Yeah, this deck stacking in the NBA started long before anything. And now maybe you could make the argument that teams back then kind of built teams rather than just like, pieced them together and forced puzzle pieces together to win a championship. They kind of built an actual team, but I don't know. Um, Jay says, I don't think the Lakers stacked the deck last season. It was a parody of the league. Maybe not stack the deck, but LeBron counts as like two superstars on your team to begin with. And then you go and get Anthony Davis, and they got guys on their bench that were like, could even be starting on other teams. So maybe not stack the deck, but I feel like it's similar to what the Nets are doing, but also different because the Lakers did, as I say that out loud, Jay, they did get like Rondo, Dwight, JaVale. Like they got names that sort of weren't these glamorous names, and they just built an actual good team. Whereas the Nets are just like, oh, best guy available, we'll take him. Oh, best guy available, we'll take him. So maybe it is a little bit different. Kale says, I don't think Minnesota's in the position to trade him right now. They just brought his best bud D'Lo and try and make it work. Yeah, but I don't know where Karl Anthony Towns' head is even at, right? You don't even know what's going on there with everything that's, COVID struck his family, struck him. It's like, I don't even know what's going on with him. Graham says, who do you think Danny Ainge should target? Who do I kind of want? Aaron Gordon's on my list, but then that's like the bigger name. But then I'm looking at JJ Redick. I'm looking at PJ Tucker. Like, I don't need a big move this year. This is still a learning year while contending, which I keep saying is a unique instance for a team. But yeah, I mean, these guys, these names that are brought up, like I think that, again, Eric Gordon, I want something like that too. I don't need this huge target list because I think that the Celtics don't need that would help. That would put them over the top in some cases. I don't think they need that splash yet. Let's see, just a couple more comments here, and then we are going to sign off. So, Jay Cedars says KG and Allen were in their prime when they joined. True. Kale says, well, the Lakers did what the Lakers did last year is what we need to do now. Yeah, get some of those veterans, get them to start. I feel like we thought we were going to do that, or not start, play. I thought we were going to have that with Jeff Teague and sort of Tristan, but nope. Teeter says, honestly, not a Celtics fan, but I don't see the Celtics winning a ship with Tatum and Brown on the same team. I feel like they are two similar players. I don't know, Tito. Let me ask you, do you watch Celtics regularly then? Because they play off each other so well, and they are very, very different. So I have to respectfully big time disagree. I think that those two guys are two guys that can absolutely play together, and I think we've only seen like the scratching of the surface. Jay Caesar says, all right, got to get off. Good night, brother. I'm gonna take that opportunity to sign off as well. Appreciate you guys tuning in to the live stream. If you made it all the way through, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like this stream, guys. We go live after every single Celtics game, win or lose, rain or shine, even though we do it inside. But make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the stream, and I'll catch you in the next one. Tough loss, but let's go Celts. Let's turn this around. Come on now. But I'll catch